Hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. So, funny story. In last week's episode, I managed to misidentify the role that Dan Payne plays in Star Trek Beyond. The character's name is Wadjet, but he's not Krall's heavy, he's actually one of the good guys, an Enterprise security guard who assists in Sulu and Uhura's escape attempt. I watched the entire movie looking at the wrong actor. I'm an idiot. Sorry, Dan. Still a good episode, though. My guest this week is Torri Higginson, who's currently starring as Natalie Lawson on CBC's This Life, airing Sundays at 9 p.m. She also appears in Space's Dark Matter and the web series Inhuman Condition, and you can see her this Friday in Canada in the new movie The History of Love. Torri picked Wings of Desire, Wim Wenders' essential 1987 drama starring Bruno Ganz as Damiel, a lonely angel who watches over the souls of Berlin and finds himself drawn to a trapeze artist played by Solveig Domartin, and through her, to the human world. If you've seen it, you know exactly why I just called it essential. If you haven't, well, you kind of need to see it. Shooting the world of the angels in lustrous black and white while rendering human experience in grainy color, Wenders created a rapturous study of what it means to be alive and engaged with the world and the people around us, which I think is something we badly need right now. Also, Peter Falk. We could use him too. This is Someone Else's Movie.
I started thinking, well, what movies, have a thematic similarity to the show that I'm doing? Because, that sort of publicity and talking about. Sure, so I thought, try to connect it. And I was thinking about things like Sarah Polley's Away from Her. And then I thought about The Martian even. And I was thinking, but I'd have to rewatch those because I would have to rewatch them to have a deep conversation about it. And I just, then out of the back of my head went, oh, Wings of Desire. It was sort of my favorite film for all throughout theater school. I would go, it used to always play at the Review Cinema around the corner from where I lived in Portobello. I was going to school in London, actually. Nice. And I would go to see it probably once a month for about 3 years. I just would visit it all the time. Oh. So I thought, and thematically, it's kind of similar as well. There's some really sort of nice crossover things about humanity and what it is to be human and the uncertainty of it and the pain of it, and that the pain is worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
It's an interesting. As soon as you put it in that frame, as soon as you put it in that perspective, I realized, yeah, of course, because This Life is about someone who is suddenly. She's not thrust into her life exactly, but she's suddenly thrust at a remove, and she's paying more attention, I suppose is the best way to put it, than everyone else is.
Yeah.
And in Wings of Desire, it's observers suddenly participating. Right, that's the long arc of the film is to show us how Damiel lands in our world essentially. Yeah. But it is just such a. I think I had more or less the same experience. The first time I saw it was at the Bloor Cinema, and it was the movie that everyone was sort of obliged to go and see if they were studying the arts. And I had managed to miss it theatrically on its initial release, and then it just never left the Bloor. It was there constantly. It was on the rep circuit.
It's true, right?
I'm sure it
that.
still is.
You probably because the Bloor's now doc, but it's probably still on the rep circuit. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure it plays the review every now and then. And it's the kind of movie that the joke about They Might Be Giants. They tell the story about how they're constantly being discovered because there's always a new generation, and there's always a new year of college freshmen. There's always people going, oh, these guys are cool. Where did they come from?
Isn't Nick Cave and the Bat, They Might Be Giants?
No, but it's the same effect. Like people discover Wings of Desire because they see the poster up in somebody's dorm room, I think, or because it's playing at the student.
I got you. I was in my brain. I was thinking, because the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds are in Wings of Desire, so I was connecting that thought that they get discovered because of Wings of Desire.
Yeah, although I guess those are both they probably do as well. I mean, they're definitely the Nick Cave factor. Is so strong, and I don't think I'd ever seen him in anything before I saw him in that.
I don't think I had either, and I'd already been a fan of his. I was sort of a little punk rock music fan at that age, so I'd already loved his stuff, and I was so surprised he was in the film. I didn't know he was in the film when I went to see it.
Yeah.
That might have been part of what took me back every time.
Yeah. The thing about Wenders that kind of falls by the wayside now because he has been doing this for so long that he's become this minted auteur who's taken very, very seriously. But his musical taste, his sensibility, his love of American culture, it all comes together in Wings of Desire, which is also his most German movie. It's this polyglot, it's this bursting thing, and I have a
that's interesting. Yeah.
I have a real soft spot for movies that capture a point in time that isn't possible to visit anymore.
Yeah.
And you're watching a film about the Berlin Wall before it falls down, but it's coming. Like the whole energy of the movie is that it's on its way.
This shift.
This big transformative moment.
When was the film out? It was
88, I think.
Was it 88?
Yeah, I will check the disc. This is the
And
easiest way to reference it.
When was the Berlin Wall? That was 91 or
1987, and the wall fell in 89, I think.
89. Oh gosh! Wow. Yes, it was right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
And you can see, I mean, the black and white and color contrast.
Yeah.
You actually see how alive Berlin is. So yeah, I mean, we see this as outsiders anyway. So not being German ourselves and not seeing it in Germany, there's a removed perspective, but then to also have the humanity and angel perspectives, it's I'm doing all the talking. It is just
good.
It's such a magnificent film about perspectives and alienation and isolation and this yearning to connect. But
and then you have the American actor that's in that world, so he's an outsider, and then you have that whole observation of the role of an actor, observing and being a part of, and what is that balance and. Yeah.
And an American actor working in a foreign language, in a foreign land. It's practically a handbook to empathy.
Oh,
I mean, as
that's
films
beautiful.
go, you just sit there and you understand what it's like to be all of these people, including the angels, including people who aren't people.
Yeah.
Really. And I have to say, I'm probably getting all the important stuff out too fast, but I met Peter Falk a couple years later, and that's him. Like, he's not acting. He's
really?
Simply, I would be, if he hadn't, well, I suppose I was going to say if he hadn't died, but he did die because he would die because he was a human. I would still believe that Peter Falk actually was an angel who came to Earth, who decided to become human, and then just told Wenders the story, and he's like, that would be a good idea for a film. It's just the warmest, most...
I love that phrase, a handbook for empathy. It's a beautiful phrase.
I'm probably stealing it from Ebert. I mean, he called cinema the empathy machine, so it all comes back to that.
Okay, yeah. But it's lovely. It is that. And what I love about it, too, is just that absolute... There's a line in it, I remember, something about... a sign about being amazed by men and women is what made him human. The amazement. And then that decision to be human, to give up your immortality. Like, we live in a culture, we don't want to talk about death. We don't like to think about death. We only really honor youth. So you sort of think in our culture, if somebody said, you could be immortal and live forever, we would all go, yes, I'll take that. But you have just that beautiful, simple lesson of, but would we? And even knowing all the pain and all the loneliness, to choose to do that, I would rather see in color for a day.
Yeah, it's such an inconceivable challenge, I guess, to portray a species or an entity that isn't us. And simply by creating this sort of alien structure for everything, there's this whispering that can influence us, but they can't necessarily save us. And they feel pain, but they can't experience passion. At least it seems that way until Daniel sees Don Martin and is struck by her beauty and all that. And it is this. It plays on the level of a fairy tale where you could watch it without sound and understand everything that's going on.
That's the other thing I love about it, which is because it's a visual medium. It's a poem. Like, it's a beautiful poem, a visual poem, that film in particular. But film is a visual medium, and so it's television to a certain degree. But we get so caught up in trying to jam pack so much information, and it gets very wordy. And one of the series I love right now is Transparent, because they allow so much space. There's so much space. There'll be scenes of like 4 minutes with 3 lines sometimes, and you get that. I mean, we're allowed to then feel so much when we're not having to digest all the language.
Yeah.
We're allowed to just have the image wash over and the emotion wash over.
Yeah, I mean, especially given that Transparent was designed to be watched it's an Amazon show, so presumably they're expecting people to watch it on computers,
Yeah.
where everything is about keeping you focused and busy and have something happening. To see a show that breathes like that, even though I was going to say in Transparency, most of the action in Transparent is seating based, where people are just sitting there and stewing in
That's
their emotions
true.
of each other. But that's compelling.
And they do it so well.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, the silence, the space in Wings of Desire, I find really compelling and inviting.
So how did the repeat viewing enhance or affect? Are pieces of it more vivid to you? Did you discover things as you watched it?
I mean, I actually haven't rewatched it. I need to rewatch it. I haven't watched it in full for probably over 5 years now.
Oh, wow.
And probably since I was at theater school, I mean, I watched it literally every month for 3 years. Every month.
Right.
It was my go-to. And then I probably in my 20s watched it a lot more. I haven't watched it that much for probably the last 15, 20 years, to be honest.
But if you saw it that many times initially, it's in you.
It's in me, yeah. I've got just the images. I love the just, again, that idea that children and animals sense all that other world, and that silent connection between those... The smiles, the Bruno Gantz just smiling at the children, and I just love that. The moment, I remember too, that first moment that he sees in color, and he's asking about the colors. He's looking at the graffiti, and he's asking, he doesn't know what the names are, and everything's new. He's a child.
Yeah.
He becomes a child.
Yeah, it's such a... And, of course, he's seeing a symbol of communism. Like, it's the wall. It's not simply graffiti. It's a barrier. It's suddenly, he's being... Not only is he staring in wonderment at everything around him, but he's also confronted with a limitation that wasn't there before for him, because he could simply move away or back and forth or ignore obstacles and obstructions. There's no indication. Berlin is sort of his territory, but there's no indication that they can't travel around and just be. They're celestial beings.
See, I missed all that.
Oh,
That's completely, of course.
I'm a deep reader.
Of course.
That's how it goes. But it's just one of those things where you keep finding out new pieces of the design. They keep revealing themselves to you over the decades, and that's what I meant about being able to watch this piece of recorded history that wasn't intentionally a historical document, but now, of course, that's not there, and that world isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to see just how people relate to the wall, how the characters are they're not afraid of it, they're not bothered by it, they're simply used to it. There are people there who were born after it was erected, and they simply accept it as a limitation of their world.
Yeah.
And then to have Bruno Gant's character suddenly confront all of these things anew. I mean, now you get to watch it and think, oh, that's right, they wouldn't have noticed that either.
Yeah.
But for us, it's this scar that runs through the entire city.
Gosh, that's so funny. It's so true. Because, I mean, I think for me, then when was I watching it? Yeah, I mean, I was just so caught up in the thematics of humanity and love and compassion, and I didn't even take into account really the politics of it. What an actor!
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you can absolutely experience it as absent any politics, because it's about emotions. It's entirely about emotions, and the quest for them and the importance of them. But I think now it's weirdly more significant as a political allegory that probably wasn't intended in the first place.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. I'm going to go and purchase it today and watch it tonight.
The Criterion Blu-ray, for any of you listening at home, is
beautiful.
Absolutely exquisite. It's Wenders has been doing... I finally got to meet him. We know some of the same people in one of those weird little coincidences, but I didn't get to talk to him until just last year when he came through TIFF with Everything Will Be Fine. And it was one of those conversations where, I mean, he's a former film critic. He's as geeky as I am about stuff. We'd spent most of our time talking about 3D cameras and how he truly believes they're going to change the nature of drama.
Really?
Wow. It sounds so pompous. There's a moment in Everything Will Be Fine, which is not a great movie, but as a test case for this is how you can shoot a drama in 3D, it's a really interesting one. There's a moment in the film where the camera is just James Franco's face in 3D, and he does this little tiny thing, and it's It's just a simple physical motion, and it's like you're actually seeing him act for the first time because of the weird intimacy of having the bridge of his nose be 3 inches closer than the forehead.
Wow.
It really does dimensionalize drama in a way that I would not have thought possible. And so we talked about that a lot. But he also mentioned that...
And he's excited about that. He's excited about
Wenders
it.
Actually, he genuinely... The film he made this year, which I haven't seen, which he brought to TIFF, is a 2-character play filmed in 3D.
Oh, wow.
At a lake house somewhere, I think, in maybe... I want to say Lake Como, but I'm probably wrong about that. But somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's just 2 actors and text. And he made a movie.
See, I'd be interested to see a 3D film in that sort of context, because the only ones I've seen are really big action fantasy,
right, yeah.
and so yeah, I'd be interested to see how it affects you when it is just a conversation, and that's what you're saying. It is quite... It's
surprisingly compelling. You basically have to be trapped in the dark with it. I don't know that it would work at home. I don't know it would work on a smaller screen, but in a great big auditorium, just the sense that you're watching someone breathe, you're watching someone exist in a moment, that kind of worked. It comes close in Baz Luhrmann's Great Gatsby. There's a scene, there's just one scene in a hotel suite where the character is just the camera is just with the characters as they're having a conversation, and you think this could actually work. It's like being on stage with the actors and just choosing which vantage point you're going to take.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. For all of our fumbling with virtual reality filmmaking, I think that's how it's going to work. Maybe.
Yeah.
Put a 360-degree camera in the center of a stage, let actors perform, and then allow the audience to wander around in that space and watch the performance. That could be fascinating.
That's interesting. I know. I mean, it's sort of a different take, but the National in Britain, they will film all of their theater, and just seeing that, I've gone to see a few of those productions, and because they put cameras all over, I go, oh, this is a really interesting perspective of theater. It's changing. It's still a theatrical play, but you're changing your perspective of it, and you're able to, you feel you're moving around a little bit because they're cutting.
Did you see the Danny Boyle Frankenstein a couple of years back?
I did.
That was one where he was very clearly directing it for theater and screen at the same time. He was
conscious of,
But it worked.
It worked.
It was really interesting, and it gives you a perspective that you could not have. I mean, there were overhead shots. There was...
because filming theater usually does not work. It just doesn't work. It's 2 very different mediums, and just to have the back camera, the flat, just things get lost completely.
Yeah, and with the 3D stuff, Wenders does seem to be onto something, and he had jokingly said that if he was given the chance, he might create a 3D version of Wings of Desire, a post 3D version, but he would only do it for the color sequences.
Oh, okay. So like taking that up another notch.
Exactly, to sort of demonstrate the sense of feeling and the sense of overwhelming existence.
Oh, God, he's so cool.
That could work.
That could work.
And I kind of want him to do it.
Oh, yes.
But, it would change the color balances, the light levels, 3D makes everything darker. And it has to, because you're not only is the filter on the camera, not only is the filter on the projector in the theater, but it's also the glasses that you're wearing, so you have to screw with the light levels to make it look real again.
Oh.
It's much more complex than people initially think. I was stunned by how difficult it is to post-convert something properly, because you're also counting on, this is something that, who told me this? Either Alfonso Cuarón or Guillermo del Toro. It was the same year. But they were explaining that not only do you have to get the color right in the 3D version, because you're using 2 panels to create the depth of 3D, but you're also relying on having a proper projectionist. So the bulb is fresh and the theater is well maintained. Any tiny calculation will make your film look darker and duller.
Oh, okay.
So it's exhausting. And when Wenders says, I think I could do Wings of Desire that way, it's like, yeah, but the black and white sequences are going to get a lot less lustrous. There's that silver texture that makes them so gorgeous.
They're so beautiful. Did you ever see the American version? What is it, something, The Angels?
Oh, City of Angels.
City of Angels.
Yes.
I didn't see it.
Oh, it's terrible.
Is it?
Yeah, it's actually a really good example for why the political aspect of the film is so important. Why the presence of the wall matters, because without it,
that whole thing that I missed.
Wow, I'm sure you.
I don't think I missed it completely. I just, like what sat with me is the
certainly the idea
love and the emotion.
Certainly the idea of a character in 1987 Germany yearning for freedom.
Yeah.
At the cost of his own.
Yeah.
Immortality. That's part of it anyway.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But yeah, you remove that, and you really do have just this clumsy idea of Nicolas Cage being so smitten with Meg Ryan that he gives up everything for her, and then they just they come up with some really terrible angles on that stuff. It is absolutely possible to remake good films well. It just doesn't happen very often it doesn't happen very often. Yeah, so many times it's simply someone thinking, "Oh, I can do that better. I have an idea that will work," and it just doesn't. The material just fights it. I mean, in City of Angels, which I hesitate to spoil, 'cause I don't know that you can spoil it because it's terrible. But our hero becomes human. They have one wonderful night together, and she's hit by a truck. But she is hit by a truck in the most ludicrous and sort of hand-wringing melodramatic way. She goes for a bicycle ride after waking up with him, and she just goes off, and she's riding with her arms thrown back, and she lifts her head up to the sky, and the audience is going truck, 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 truck. There's just it's so telegraphed and so clumsy that when it happens, I mean, I saw it with a preview audience at the Upton, and I don't think most of them even knew it was a remake, and they just rejected it.
Really?
They were laughing at it, and it was
embarrassing. That's painful.
Yeah. The one great idea is that Andre Braugher plays Cassiel, or the Cassiel equivalent.
Okay.
And he's great. He's just an absolute... He was doing Homicide at the time, and there's a little bit of Frank Pembleton to him. He's just a no bullshit angel. Yeah. Which is terrific.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. I mean, the better Wings of Desire, the better American remake of Wings of Desire is probably The Prophecy.
I've not seen that.
No, it's the Christopher Walken Angel War movie, which nobody remembers or has even heard of.
I'll write it down, though.
Sure. It's here somewhere. I'll show it to you. But it's a very heavy, serious kind of horror movie that Miramax made in 1992 and 93. It was called God's Army originally. They retitled it, and it stars Christopher Walken as the Archangel Gabriel come to Earth to...
See, I believe that already. Christopher Walken, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, but what they did was they stole the look.
Okay.
So they're guys in great coats and walking around with this big weight on them.
Yeah.
And it's Walken and Eric Stoltz, and Viggo Mortensen shows up as the devil in a really early role.
Oh my gosh, how have I not seen this movie?
Yeah, it spawned a bunch of terrible sequels, which is probably why if you ever saw it on a wall somewhere, you'd think, oh, I don't know about that. But it's actually pretty great.
Yeah.
And it uses your knowledge of Wings of Desire as part of the narrative. If you have seen it, you will immediately get what the director Gregory Wyden is going for, and it's kind of great.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about 5 years later, I think, and just about acknowledging just how iconic and important Wenders' film was.
Yeah.
And then Wenders made the sequel, Far Away So Close, which didn't really
grab.
Yeah. Did you see it?
No, I haven't seen that either. I've only seen one film in my life, and it was Wings of Desire, about 20 years ago.
It's a good one. I mean, if you have to pick one.
It's not a bad one to pick.
Yeah. Well, Far Away So Close picks up with the characters and...
Oh, it's the same. Oh,
yeah, kind of.
Peter Fox in it, Bruno Ganz, okay. Oh, Willem Dafoe.
Yes, Willem Dafoe is playing... He's the ostensible villain who introduces himself as Emmett Flesty and then spells his name out so we can understand that it's actually time itself written backwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a little more naive. And it's an unnecessary sequel. I mean, there's nothing at the end of Wings of Desire that's really left hanging.
No.
We know they live happily ever after. That's sort of the point.
Yeah.
And in the film, we do get to see what happily ever after means, which is sort of nice. Damiel's just, I think he's running a pizza shop, if I remember correctly. Just sort of living quietly with her, and everything's fine.
They've stopped the circus.
Yeah, maybe she still performs. I want to say she does. I want to say there's at least one scene where she's sort of doing it, but it's just casual now. It's not, she's settled down with him, so she's not traveling anymore.
I mean, what I feel about the end of Wings of Desire, though, is that it doesn't matter. I mean, I kind of get that with the explanation of the American version. to me, it doesn't matter if they are together for 60 years or for a week or that's the only time. It doesn't matter. It's like, to me, what I got from the film is that life and humanity is so confusing and fabulous, it's worth it for a day.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of worth it. And it's worth all the pain. It's worth all the unknowing. I love that. I remember them talking to the other angel about to not know. What a joy it'd be to not know.
Yeah. It is, it's kind of that, well, it's the same thing that James Cameron's always doing. You know, like the idea that we love a lifetime's worth in the one day that comprises both Terminator and Titanic. He has these huge love stories packed into small windows of time.
Yeah.
And then somebody gets killed. Or The Abyss, where you basically need to watch your love die in order to save her and renew the relationship. He never admits it, but he's a huge romantic.
Aww,
and
I like that.
These films, Wings specifically, Faraway Cyclist kind of fumbles the ball in the last act. It becomes the kind of movie that Wenders often makes, which is he follows a concept down a rabbit hole and just never comes out again.
Okay.
But Wings is so rigid in a weird way, even though it feels like it isn't, because it drifts and it moves from character to character and it just shows you snippets and gets lost in people, but it's always from Damiel's perspective. When we watch the trapeze sequence, it's because he can't not look. He's smitten by her.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it because it's about all the other things that are happening. And the sound design is so important in those scenes too, because it sort of just drifts away. We're hearing so many whispers and so much constant motion.
I love the whispers.
Yeah.
I love the layers and it's like water. It sort of comes like waves.
Yeah, and when it drops out, we really, I think by the time those sequences happen, we're trained to be hearing it, and so when it drops out, we don't realize it's dropped out, but we focus more.
Yeah.
Like part of the brain is trying to figure out what's different.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting look at it. That makes sense, because it does. It feels so soft and airy and inviting, but it is very specific. Very specific.
Yeah.
When he's so specific with his music and his sound always, right? That means a lot to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and the music choices, again, to have Cave, to be distracted for a little while by a Nick Cave musical number, which is so scary powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's, and again, you can argue that it's a distraction within the film, but it's also something so compelling that it is life. It's part of what draws Damiel in. But the power of that sequence, I had never seen anything like it, and just the fury that he brings to the performance. I once saw Nick Cave. This sounds so stupid. It's so great. I swear it's true. Kate and I were in England, and we were staying in a hotel called the K West, which, as it turns out, she got it booked through her work, but it turns out that it's a record label hotel. They use it a lot. So whatever record label Nick Cave was on had put him there. So we were waiting for something. I think we were waiting to be picked up in the morning, and Nick Cave was quietly eating porridge at the breakfast bar, and he was staring at it like it had disappointed him. There was this incredible beetle-browed fury, and it was amazing. And it's like, that's how I want Nick Cave to be all the time.
Mad at his porridge.
Just
That's so great.
Yeah, displeased. He wasn't angry. It was displeasure.
Oh, that's so great. What a fabulous image. Oh, I've had a crush on him my entire... So as a teenager, I find him so compelling.
Well, I mean, this movie would do it if you saw it at the right age. That alone.
Yeah.
He is incredibly magnetic, and of course, the bad boy vulnerability in I'm not going to tell them about the girl. I want to tell you about a girl. It's just... It's great. And it's this thing that Wenders does, this innate understanding of musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his love of music, because I wasn't even aware until after the whole Buena Vista Social Club.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was him.
Yeah.
Like, there was this huge thing about this movie. I'm like, wait, that's a Wenders movie. How bizarre.
How did he get involved with that?
Yeah.
But it makes sense because he just, he follows his interests, and there's a handful. I guess it's probably a result of financing more than anything else that you can do it when you're, Herzog does it all the time. Mm-hmm. You can, if you're known well enough on a festival circuit, you're likely to pull international financing. You can put stuff together.
Yeah.
Olivier Assayas is another one. He came through town doing interviews for something. It must have been, Something in the Air. Uh-huh. And he was here putting funding together for what would, I think, become Clouds of Silmaria, but he was here meeting with investors, and his film was opening in a couple of months, so Mongrel had an early press day for him.
Okay.
And we were talking, and he just said, "Oh yeah, I've got meetings tomorrow." And what? Why do you have meetings in Toronto in October? Shouldn't you have done it at TIFF? And he's like, "Well, this is when everybody's around, and we can talk about financing." That's just how you live.
Yeah.
And so if you find documentary money and a band playing that you're interested in, you can make something like Buena Vista Social Club.
And then you're supporting the thing that you love. Yeah, that's wonderful. Did you like him?
Wenders?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
Is he easy to talk to?
He was really easy to talk to. Yeah, he's not intimidating at all.
Nice.
I've interviewed all of them, actually, now that I'm thinking about Herzog as well. And Herzog is delightfully weird because he knows how people perceive him, and I think in the last few years he's really playing into it.
He's enjoying it. It's one of my favorite documentaries, My Best Fiend.
My Best Fiend?
My Best Fiend,
yeah.
Best Fiend. Oh, I love that so much.
I would happily have killed him had the opportunity presented itself. He's wonderful.
It's like a megalomaniac making a movie about another megalomaniac.
Yeah.
It's just fabulous.
Yeah. And with Wenders you get none of that. You just get he's one of those filmmakers. He's one of those artists, I suppose. It's not just for film. He's really interested in whatever you might be talking about, and he will just he asks more questions than I do.
Beautiful.
In the course of the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is how we got into the whole wonky 3D thing, because, well, what did you think of, did you think it worked? And I said, well, there was this one shot. And he's like, yes, we worked very hard on that, and it took forever.
Oh, nice.
But James was willing to do it. And I was like, yeah, okay, but why? And then he explained his theory about drama and the proscenium and how it actually works to create intimacy, and then he said about it was going to do this, and I'm like, well, okay, you won me over.
But so for you, it's just that one scene with the nose, that one frame of the nose that justified it, that made you see the possibility of it.
Yeah, that's where the whole film is sort of designed to lead you to realize that this is a way of storytelling that works.
Yeah.
But that moment it's simply an instant in which Franco's character decides or has to decide whether or not to do something, and the inaction is visible, and it's really interesting.
Oh,
and I'm sure it would work in 2D. Mm-hmm. It probably does. I mean, I haven't actually watched the 2D version, but it's out. But I see the value of 3D in that moment, where you just feel like you can scrutinize, because you can see, thanks to the depth, you can actually see the pieces. You can focus on whatever you want to.
Yeah.
And you're drawn to this tiny moment of minimalistic expression.
Does he think that there's a possibility, or is there a possibility of there being 3D without having to wear the glasses?
Everybody I've ever talked to says it's possible, and then they always say it's 10 years away, and they've been saying that for 30 years.
Okay.
Douglas Trumbull, who is a huge proponent of high frame rate HFR, the thing that Peter Jackson tried to do with The Hobbit that did not work at all. Mm-hmm. He believes that if you get the frame rate fast enough, you could conceivably have 3D without glasses in a smaller scale than ShowScan or any kind of giant 70mm projection. I mean, there was this thing called Tour of the Universe underneath the CN Tower in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember that.
Did you ever ride it?
No.
It worked. It was a process called ShowScan. It was two 70mm projectors at the right angle, calculated with synchronized frames. Uh-huh. And it pretty much worked if it was dark enough and there was enough motion in the room, because it had to be, the whole ride was a flight simulator, and the shaking, the mild shaking, made it work in your brain. It actually helped. If you were sitting and watching it stock still, you kind of see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that worked until the film got scratchy or anything happened that would deviate from it. And that was 1980. I was there. I was there. It was my last year of high school. I worked there in the off season. So that was 1986, and we got to ride it. We got to see it, and it worked really, really well. Yeah. But you could also see every single thing forced to work in concert. If one thing went out, it wouldn't work. And now with video, it's, again, theoretically possible, but the screens have to be really big and the projectors have to be firing at full brightness all the time. If it starts to die, you have to replace the bulb right away. It's still really, really expensive. And no worries. It's like theme park only.
What for you didn't work with The Hobbit? The Hobbit for me made me very dizzy. That's what I just sort of got, was nauseous.
So you saw it in 3D?
Yeah.
With the high frame. For me, what it was I was really aware. I only saw the first one in HFR, and then subsequently I think I saw it in 3D and then flat, in that order.
Okay.
Those three parts. The frame rate version had a weird way of bending because the whip pans and those really speedy camera movements that Jackson loves have this way of working against the 3D and flattening things out. It almost looked like the whole thing was being shifted on an angle every time they did that. And it looked like video. It just looked like weird, flat, underlit video that was also in 3D.
Because I took my nephew, who's, I think he was 17 at the time, and we went to one of those big cinemas here, and I was sitting on the side, and I just felt...
Oh, if you're on the side.
It was awful. I felt dizzy, and I felt that stuff was just out of focus. Like, I just sort of couldn't... And I love all those films. I'm a bit of a sucker for those films. So I was really disappointed in that because I couldn't be engaged with it because I was fighting my body's reaction to it, which was just, I couldn't see the story.
Yeah. And in addition to all the technical problems, failings, I don't know what to call it, but the complications that I encountered at the first screening was also the fact that, wow, this movie is 3 hours long and we haven't left the Shire.
Yeah.
We're still here. And that's okay though? You don't mind the length?
I grew up with my uncle in southwest Wales. We'd go to Wales for the summer and he would read aloud. Oh. He read aloud Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit book. So I have such just a heart kid connection. I could watch any of those films in any manner and have no critical criticism of them. Just love them.
You just want to be in the world.
I just want to be in that world. Right. I want that story. I like that world of good and evil and black and white, and it's simple, and I believe that. I think we need more of that here. Right. Too many grays in our world.
And yet Wings of Desire is all gray.
I know.
Like, it's literally all gray for the first hour and plus, and it works for you.
It works so well for me. Well, because again, I think what Wings of Desire does it's just so human. It's just so allowing. It's so loving the brokenness of us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's really beautiful because we all are. Everybody's broken. Sure. Just in different ways, and it's just this wonderful accepting and loving of that, and not even forgiving us for it, but loving us because of it. That's what makes us human.
Yeah.
That sinfulness.
I can think of no greater compliment from the angels than to want to hang out with us, to actually want to be us.
Right.
Even at that cost.
To go see how broken they are, how lonely they are, how messed up they are, how short their life is, how hard it is. It's cold, they can be hungry, but I want that. I want to believe that I like the idea of that being a reality still. Like the idea of, your grandmother somehow...
Sure, yeah.
Just looking over, just like not having any ability to touch or connect, but just that somebody is overseeing. And the internet hasn't dampened my need for that, my hope for that.
Right.
Not need for that. Not that I believe that, but I like that romantic idea.
It's an aspirational fantasy, right? Like the idea that there is, not only is there someone looking out for us, but then that must mean there's structure and purpose. Yeah. I totally understand why people find that comforting.
It's that's exactly what it is. Just a comfort of that there is, some purpose to all of this.
Yeah. And then I fall back on Herzog, right? Like all these chaos. Yeah. Just, go have a muffin because there's a meteor coming. Whatever it is. Or nature will destroy us at any moment. You will choke on a salmon bone.
You do him very well.
I know, it's terrible. I'm very bad at this. I was running around. There was a moment where I almost, at TIFF, it sounded like he was going to do the show. And then they couldn't do it. Well, it's too much of an ask. It's an hour and a half in the middle of a film festival. And I totally understand. Yeah. But some part of me is also convinced that he listened to the 2 episodes about Strozek and Grizzly Man and heard me do it. And it's like, I won't go near that boy. I will have nothing to do with your program and will actively work against your show. But
that's funny.
No, it's my terrible...
What was that documentary he did about Loch Ness Monster?
Oh, Incident at Loch Ness.
Yeah.
Which is not a documentary, but that's what makes it so great.
Yeah, it's like a weird...
Yeah, it's a movie about him trying to make a documentary, and it becomes its own thing. It's almost a found footage movie. It's kind of ingenious. It's here somewhere too.
He's just so... I could just watch him for hours. He's just so compelling and weird and wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get him someday.
You'll get him.
But
just
I did
stop doing that.
So the final question of the podcast is also always the same, which is what of this movie, what of Wings of Desire, have you used or borrowed or incorporated into your own creative DNA, do you ever find it coming out in the work that you do?
Oh, that's so nice. What a nice thought. What a nice question.
The thing that fascinates me, the influences that we don't understand we have.
Yeah. What a lovely question.
Thank you.
I mean, I think what I love about the film is the listening. Just the listening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're especially now, we're in such a world that everybody has to have an opinion, has to have a mantra, has to have a soundbite, has to have... And the most intimate thing you can do is to listen. And as an actor, the best thing to do is to listen. And to not... I remember years ago being told that great thing about, acting is reacting. So you put all your energy into just believing what the person is saying to you. Just listen to them. And then you just respond naturally as one would. And I think that film, Wings of Desire, it's just these people, just these angels just listening. And I think that has somehow trickled through me.
Yeah. Do you find it happening more in this life than in anything? I mean, the show, again, it puts your characters in that perspective of observing and constantly being more present by definition than the other characters are.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's that one thing, I believe that's what all religion is about. Everything is there to try to get us to be present, and yet the only time we're ever going to feel present is the moment that we're told that we're going to die. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, now I get it. So it's a gift character to play, a gift situation to play, because it is forcing you to really, and she can't put all of her, because she's trying to protect the children, so she can't put all of her fears and her roller coaster of pain and fear forefront. All she can do is watch everybody and observe them. And I mean, I think that's sort of her struggle. She does try to control the first little bit. She's trying to control the outcome. And that's sort of her evolution, is getting to a place of all I can do is be witness to them.
Yeah.
And be witness to myself as I go through this. And nobody knows, because we don't know. Nobody knows how long any of us have. And that's kind of what's so beautiful. And that's what's so beautiful about Wings of Desire, too. That it's worth it. It's worth it. Just the act of being human, of experiencing humanity. It's worth it if it lasts 90 years or if it lasts 5 years. It's kind of worth it. And even if we are all told, if you were told how you were going to die and when you were going to die, probably no matter how appalling of a death that was, we would all still choose the experience.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't have a religious grounding. I don't believe in anything except people, which is great and terrible, because you're always aware of, the whole concept. Free will itself is an illusion if there's nothing to defy, but you can just not disappoint the people in your life. That would be a good start. That's the Joss Whedon thing. And I know I've mentioned this on the show before, but my only religious philosophy is what Whedon wrote somewhere, like, if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do, which is so lame to express, but if you actually try to do that, it makes you a fairly decent person.
I think that's fabulous. I mean, I think religion, I think it's all, it's a whole nother podcast to talk about
exactly.
that.
It gets heavy.
But it's...
Wings of Desire. It's got angels in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there, and as you say, like, the simple, basic pleasure of existence is something that comes through really clearly in the film, and it's why I can't fully write off Far Away So Close, which is an unnecessary sequel on so many levels, except that it lets us see that he's okay, that he's happy, that it does work out, and in a weird, in a weird bedtime story way, I do want to know that.
Yeah.
I want to believe that it's going to be okay, but that's an act of faith on the filmmaker. Like, it's my faith in Wenders that he's telling the story in a direction that suits the optimism and the hope of the premise, as opposed to City of Angels, which just, uses this entire beautiful movie for a cheap third act tragedy that is geared to make people think about nothing. It closes the book and moves them forward.
But is it, maybe I'm missing the point, but is it, I think that he would still trade all that up if he did just have the one night with her.
Well, maybe.
I think he would still make the choice to do it, because to feel existence, to feel cold, to feel passion, I think he would if he was told, okay, you can become human, but it's only going to last 24 hours, will you still do it? I think he still would.
Yeah.
Which is maybe kind of, no, but I guess in the City of Angels, she dies, so that's
right. She dies to teach him what death is, which is silly because he clearly knows.
He knew better than anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's like, oh, you didn't understand.
We're gonna make it like a German film by making it seem sort of dark at the end.
Yeah. As opposed to Wings and Far Away So Close, where Bruno Ganz is simply there to be happy because that's the leap of faith.
Yeah.
Like even if it doesn't work out with her.
Yeah.
He gets to have a pizza. Like he gets to live in the world and experience it and just hang around. I kind of, one of the other things that I thought at the very end of the first screening was like, oh, he's going to go work with Peter Falk. That sounds like the best destiny in the world.
Right.
You just hang around Peter Falk all day.
That'd be pretty cool.
Who, when I met him, showed up for this. It was for A Woman Under the Influence. And the other 4 Cassavetes films that were rescued by Disney in 1992, they bought the rights to this package of films that he produced for Castle Hill. Castle Hill bought the theatrical, and Disney bought them for home video, and they released them on Laserdisc and VHS. That's how old this story is. A Woman Under the Influence had been out of circulation forever, and then there were these 5 restorations. They're the same 5 films that are in the Criterion box set now. So it's A Woman Under the Influence, Killing of a Chinese Bookie, Faces, Shadows, and Opening Night. Disney got the rights. They flew out a bunch of journalists. It turned out to be 4 people. Myself from the Toronto Star. I was the only one there from Canada, and there were 3 other people there. And we had a brunch at the AFI with Jenna Rollins, Peter Falk, Seymour Cassell, and Al Raban. Oh, it was amazing.
Super cool.
I was 23, and it was the best thing I'd ever done.
Oh my gosh.
And Peter Falk showed up, and it was like the car dropped him off. And he just, it's 11:30 in the morning on a Friday in California. He's like, do you have any red wine? Can I have a glass of red wine? And just keep it filled. And he was just everything you'd want him to be.
Nice.
I got to sit at a table with him and Rollins and one other journalist, a guy from, I think he was there from the Tower Records magazine, Pulse. Okay. Just again, kids, Wikipedia. And we just talked about Cassavetes and work. Beautiful. For all of that, and I did get to ask him about Wings of Desire, and he just said, yeah, how do you not play you if somebody asks you?
Yeah.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah. Oh, what a delightful memory. What a delightful experience.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have been able to do that.
Yeah.
And to have already known his work as well at that age, because now, obviously, everything's accessible, and you can... The kids today, they don't understand. You had to go get a VHS
You had to
tape
work
and
hard.
put it in your machines.
Yeah, you had to work hard. You had to find the place. So I'm rolling your dog's ear.
Yeah, it's okay, Susan.
You seem okay with it.
Oh yeah, I'll let you do anything.
Aww. Yeah, you had to work for it. It's fine. I do sound like an old person now. I kind of miss that, though, having to work for it.
Yeah.
Because it was an easier way to show your passion. And then you also had more of a connection to that passion. Mm-hmm. I've always been a huge lover of music. And now I put my computer on. I just put shuffle on iTunes. And songs come up. And I'm like, who is this?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, God, that's awful. I would know who it was. I would know who produced it. I would know what the cover art was on the album.
Right.
And now it's just...
But there was it was totemic, right? Like there was a ritual of pulling the CD out or the record or the cassette. Yeah. None of that happens anymore. I mean, It still does if you force yourself. I was at HMV last week and I brought home Fully Completely has been reissued in a special edition with a concert from the Horseshoe Tavern in 1992.
Oh, wow.
As the bonus CD. It's like, I have to have that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's right over there and I can play it anywhere I want to because it's a CD.
That's cool.
And... apparently it's on iTunes as well, but I don't want it on iTunes.
I actually admit to having a turntable and a receiver and speakers in the back of my car right now because I had them with me in Montreal, so I'm driving them back to LA.
Nice.
So I still go and buy my vinyl.
Good for you.
Old school.
Absolutely.
My thanks to Torri Higginson, whom you can see on CBC Sundays at 9 p.m. in This Life, and this Friday in theaters in The History of Love. Thanks also to Julia Caslin. She knows what she did. You can find Torri on Twitter at Torri_Higginson, 2 R's, 2 G's, and you can find Wings of Desire on Blu-ray and DVD in the Criterion Collection in an excellent special edition. You can also find it for sale or rental on iTunes, and lucky American listeners can stream it on Criterion's new Filmstruck service, where it's accompanied by most of the special edition extras, but only the DVD and the Blu-ray have Wenders and Falk's audio commentary, and take it from me, that is priceless. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you want to leave a review on iTunes, that would be very kind of you. This week's call sign is I'm a Friend. Thanks for listening.